just click on there where it says got it, and it will automatically, that little box, an annoying little box will go away. So welcome everyone. My name is Angela Allen. I have the joy of serving as the director of the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute here at Cal State University, San Bernardino. Welcome to this second in the series of interviews we're doing with candidates for the governorship of California. Thank you for taking time to be, everyone, for taking time to become an informed voter. This will be recorded so that we can share it with other people who are interested in knowing more about this candidate. I'm going to be asking him some questions regarding some of the important issues of today impacting all of us who are citizens of the state. In this primary, you may vote for any candidate regardless of party, and the top two candidates receiving the most votes will go on to the general election in November. And first, we're going to start with Leo. He's going to just share for about 10 minutes his platform, what he thinks about things, why he thinks he should be governor. And then I'll start asking him some questions. Again, if anyone has any questions for him, please do type them in the chat and I will try to get to them. Okay, so Leo, you have a great message. You said you want to bring right and left together to tackle the challenges as Team California, and that sounds pretty good to me. So why don't you explain how you're going to do that?
Well, I'm focusing on California's key foundational issues. I'm not here to talk about any divisive policies, things that would, be upsetting to either side, because I think there's a lot of social issues that people get hung up on and they choose those hills to die on. And as they do that, we lose sight of what's really affecting California. And the biggest issues that we have here in California are the drought, are the homeless crisis, is the cost of living, education, crime, corruption, wildfires. I mean, these are things that affect everybody. And being in California, we are all affected by this, including the high gas prices as well and the high cost of food. I mean, this is something that everybody feels. So we can't just continue focusing on, in my opinion, things that I think less precedence at this moment, considering the dire straits that we are in right now as a nation and as a state. So I'd like to really just focus on those, because I think not only because we're all affected by it, but if we can work together to accomplish and solve these problems, we'll have a better line of communication when it does come to discussing those more difficult issues. But I would like to be able to get to those down the line, but we first need to learn how to work together and cooperate.
Got to unmute myself. Sorry. So the news came out today that producer price index was the worst it's been since the 50s. That is downstream from the consumer price index, we're already being severely impacted by fuel and food prices and all those different things. So when the producer price index, the ones that are making the stuff that is coming down line, that is producing the stuff that we're going to buy as consumers later, this is all pushing up inflation. So would you please share your ideas on what you think as governor of California you can do to help us here in California with this inflation?
Well, the thing about inflation is that, you first have to understand the situation with the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve is actually a privately owned central bank and has no affiliation with the US government, aside from it being the lender of and printer of the US currency. So that you first have to understand, that it is not a government agency. And that the money that is printed is actually loaned to us about 10% interest. So there's already debt attached to the money that we get. Now they have ways of monitoring that, but I personally would like to get away from a central bank altogether. But that's a little bit outside my jurisdiction. I would advocate strongly for that. But when it comes to things that cause the price of the dollar to the valuation of the US dollar to go down, is when you have increased fixed costs in business. And these are due to things like increasing minimum wage, obviously fuel prices, all these things that affect your fixed cost in business. That's what causes producers. My background's in manufacturing and agriculture. Zacky Farms was my family's company, and we got decimated because of California's poor legislative decisions when it comes to affecting businesses, whether it was the cost of minimum wage, the high business taxes, the utility price hikes, the environmental regulations and the business regulations. All these extra steps and extra procedures and extra costs made it so our product was so expensive just out the gate, because everything we did was in California, that it was cheaper for other states, producers in other states, to freight it all the way across the country and then beat me on price at the grocery store down the street. So when you have, I understand people are like, well, I need to make more money, but you have to understand how that works. So when you raise the price of minimum wage, the fixed cost in a company goes up. On average, labor is about 40% of your fixed cost. That's a huge chunk. So when that goes up, the only way a business can really compensate is by increasing the price of whatever product or service that they're offering. So then in turn, that minimum wage price hike that is now causing the company to charge more gets passed on to the end user, the folks that are getting that price hike, and they wind up spending roughly the same percentage wise amount of money. And all that does is it drives down the value of the US dollar. So, and it's just a negative cycle. And that's how you wind up, if you have grandparents that maybe are still around, or heard stories from your grandparents when they would talk about how they used to go down to the corner store and they could buy, candy for a penny or a nickel or something like that. And, because the valuation of the dollar, it's so devalued. It's over 90% devalued from what it was about 100 years ago. So to offset these sort of things, we have to make business more competitive here in California. We have to lower the regulations. We have to lessen the business tax, because it's choking businesses out. And you see big corporations that provide lots of jobs to folks moving out. Tesla left, Oracle left. My family, we were the largest privately owned employer in the state of California, largest poultry producer on the West Coast. We went out of business. We put thousands of people out of work because California was not a viable place to do business. So we have to make it a more accessible, business friendly playground. And I have some solutions where I'd like to support small businesses. I mean, my family's business started out as a small business and we did very well. And that's how we became so big. And I have nothing against big business, but I do want to encourage small business. So I'd like to be able to put, say, a moratorium on a California state business tax for the first 5 years, or first net $1 million that your business makes. So, I mean, if you net it in the first year, I mean, that's going to be a little bit, you might have to put a tax on that, because people will obviously find ways to cheat the system. So we will have to put a certain framework in place. But let's say you net $250,000 your first year. You're not paying the state business tax on that. Keep it, but you have to reinvest it into your company. You can't just pay yourself out or something like that. I think we need to find ways to make it more accessible for people, because right now, a lot of businesses, restaurants, for example, 90% fail within the first year. And because you have to get a location, and then you have to build out the location, and that could take months. So you're paying rent, you're not earning any profit, and you're out money. And then it takes a while to build traction to get that business going. That could take, anywhere from 3 to 9 months to even begin to build awareness. And then there you are, just about at the end of that first year, and you might not have the money to show for it. So we need to find ways to help promote business and have those opportunities available. But yes, also regulation is way too high, and environmental restrictions and utility costs. And we have to find ways to bring those down. But that's going to take, for the utility costs, that's going to take infrastructure things. And I have solutions for that. And I mean, I can cover those later if you want, or I can cover them right now, whatever you want.
Well, why don't you talk about, because I think the wildfires was a big issue. Mm-hmm. Maybe 2 years ago, and a lot of it had to do with, I think, neglected, forestation and all those things. So
right,
I know that's an area of interest for you, especially as a farmer. Water is a huge issue in this state. So why don't you talk about water in the infrastructure? Would be great.
Sure. So I mean, we have a drought, a perpetual state of drought here in California, and we haven't done anything to upgrade our water infrastructure in nearly 4 or 5 decades. And our population has doubled since then. And water is the foundational building block of life, and it is exactly the base element when it comes to agriculture. And agriculture is what makes us the world's fifth largest economy. And to have a strong economy in this sense, we're going to need a lot of water. So we need to build reservoirs all throughout the state to capture any rainfall. We should be able to build water storage and water treatment facilities off main arteries, say even the LA River, things like that actually fill up full of water. We have to be able to capture that water and then clean it and be able to put it back into the system. But we also have to build reservoirs at the high altitudes all along the Sierra Nevada and capture the snowpack, because we are currently not doing that. It's a total lost opportunity right there. On top of that, we have to upgrade our existing infrastructure. So we have to clean out all the silt and the soot that builds up in the bottom. That way they can hold more, and also prevent any situations like we had up in Oroville again. But we also have to go full force into desalination, because that will help take the pressure off the inland reserves to supply the more populated coastal areas. And my long-term vision for California is to actually make us a water exporter, where we're selling water to Nevada, Arizona, and even Mexico for profit. I co-host a radio show about 4 days a week, and we have guests on who are running for different positions in different states. And I've talked to folks who are running for governor in the state of Nevada, and I asked them, will you help California pay for a water project if we're going to sell you water? And they say, absolutely. So there's alternative ways we can go about funding projects like this. And part of my homeless plan, which is complementary to this as well, will also help with the building aspect of that. And I can get into that a little bit later. And I know people talk about desalination being expensive. And yes, I understand that. But again, my background is in manufacturing. So anything you do on a large enough scale, it brings your cost per unit way down. And that's the end game goal. And yes, it is a bit power intensive, but that's okay, because we have to invest in good, clean energy. And part of that is, and safe, is nuclear. There's a lot of ships out there in our Navy that we have folks that are sleeping literally next to and on top of nuclear reactors, and it's completely safe. We can do this. And I know folks are worried about, the seismic activity or a tidal wave or something like that. Well, we know that these are things we're going to have to deal with. So why not build them better and stronger and more robust to things like to withstand that, as well as because you have to understand, right now in the United Kingdom, they're building the world's largest and most state-of-the-art nuclear power plant near Bristol. And I mean, that's going to come online. Why can't we do that here? There's also other great sources of energy that we're not harnessing right now, like tidal energy. The tides, the ocean current is always going. That's a great opportunity there that we're not also taking advantage of. And I mean, solar is great during the day. We can invest a little bit into that. I'm not someone who likes to mandate or force things on people. Like if they want to put it onto their home, that's cool. But I wouldn't be like every single home has to have it. But like I said, we can invest into nuclear, and we will be very successful with that. We have to practice these technologies if we're ever going to improve upon them and get to the next level. And unfortunately, no, we're not out of the woods when it comes to this fossil fuel stuff, because we still need to use these technologies to get us to the point where we can move past them. And California has a wealth of oil here, and we're not tapping into that resource as efficiently as we could. We have one of the largest oil refineries in the world down here in the Long Beach area. I live in Los Angeles. We should be able to pump our own oil and refine it here locally, which will drive the price of gasoline and fuel way, way down. So, I mean, we have to do these things to allow us to have a more cost-effective system here in the state, to allow people to have more money to do and create things, so we can move on to better technologies with the practice that we've done.
Well, thank you. That was very comprehensive. So
Yeah, I can go. I
no,
can be
that's
a little
okay.
bit
That's good.
long-winded in depth, but this is
That's
because
okay.
I've thought about these things in great detail because I'm passionate about this because this is home for me. My family's been in California for well over 100 years, and I don't want to leave here. And I'm tired of seeing my friends pack up and leave, for greener pastures. And I want to do everything I can because I know how amazing California is and how much opportunities there are here. But we just have to be able to make them affordable and provide those opportunities and unlock California's full potential.
Uh, So Gavin Newsom, we're going to get into homelessness because he just
Sure.
brought that up. So Gavin Newsom said, we've got to clean up the encampments last week while he unveiled a $2 billion plan to build tiny homes and other temporary shelters to act as a bridge to permanent supportive housing with services such as medical and mental health care and substance abuse treatment. So what would your plan be to deal with California's unbelievable homeless?
Well, certainly putting them in hotels does not work and is an extreme waste of taxpayer dollars. You have to first identify the source of the problem. That's one of my expertise that I always did when I was with my family, was going to the root source of any issues that we had. So first identifying them. And that issue is, it's a mental health crisis compounded by drug addiction, exacerbated by a failing, if not failed, education system here in California. So now that we've identified the problem, how do we move forward? Well, it starts with enforcing our vagrancy laws because we're currently not able to do that. So we enforce our vagrancy laws and we give these folks the options. And those options are go and live how you want somewhere else outside of the cities where you're not, living and defecating in front of businesses or homes, uh, you know, uh, because you'd be breaking the law, so you would be able to, you could go to jail for that. But if you want to live that way, because this is a free country, we're not going to just stick you in an internment camp or something like that, against your will. You're breaking the law, you can go to jail for that. But if you can, we'll take you to go live however you want, away from, I guess, society. And then the other option is to go into the what I call my homeless to home program. If you go into jail, you're going to probably wind up in this program anyways. So I've come up with this idea, and I'm always open to suggestions, because just because it's my idea doesn't mean it's the only idea. I'm always willing to learn and listen. So first, we have to determine, all right, who are you? Do you have anybody looking for you? If you have people looking for you, like family, will help reunite you. And if they want to take you in, God bless them. They will get you reunited with your family. Then we have to determine, all right, where are you from? If you're not a California resident, let's say one of those other states, got you that Greyhound ticket and dumped you over here. Well, any services that we're going to render to you, that state, that your home state, is going to not only pay for those services, but they're going to pay a surcharge for those services. And then if we determine that you're not a US citizen and you don't have the documentation to be here, you'll be immediately repatriated. So once we go through those steps, then we have to provide facilities for them, but they don't need to be homes or apartments or condos or anything fancy like that. I'd like to take a page out of Sheriff Joe Arpaio's book and do the tent city situation. If they're good enough for prisoners and soldiers, they're good enough for folks who are living in worse and more squalid conditions on the street. And it's something that's cheap and easy to and quick to set up. So we'll have secure locations outside of the cities where they'll receive medical treatment and the food, shelter, water, and we'll be able to we'll figure out, all right, do you have a mental illness, and treat it and help teach them how to manage that mental illness and treat it. If they have a drug addiction, we'll help them overcome it. We'll have rehab specialists, therapists, and there'll be multiple locations throughout the state. And there'll be secure locations, so people can't be having, narcotics, smuggled in or anything like that. And also while they're there, they'll learn a job skill, and they'll do on the job training where they'll earn a living wage doing it. So whether it's in construction, as I alluded to earlier, or sanitation, agriculture, and even basic firefighting, they'll learn a job skill, they'll get paid. And then when they're ready to exit the program, after they've, they've learned how to either manage their mental illness or overcome their addiction, they'll have money in their pocket. They'll be eligible for government assisted housing, and any company that hires them coming out of this program will receive a tax incentive for doing so. So we're teaching a man to fish in this situation. And so part of the construction things they'll do, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be super technical. It can, simple stuff is pouring concrete and using a shovel. And we're going to have a lot of reservoirs to build. So that's going to be very helpful. Doing basic firefighting, that's going to include underbrush clearing and backburning. That's going to be very useful and effective. Sanitation, something that I think our state is absolutely lacking in. If you've ever been to Montreal, when the bars close right at 3 o'clock, like clockwork, teams of people come out and literally sanitize the streets. They change the trash. They're scrubbing them down. They're hosing them down. I mean, there's no reason we can't have that in certain parts of our major metropolitan areas, but we can also use them to help with Caltrans and clean up the trash that's all along the sides of our roadways. And they're going to earn money doing this. And then I mentioned agriculture. So they can raise crops or animals, and any of those, let's say the crops that they raise, that can help cover the costs when it comes to feeding them. And then any surplus that we have, well, the state can turn around and sell that, and you will get people to pay top dollar for organic feel-good products. Because I've been in the food industry, you will get that market share, and that can help cover some of the costs. And as you notice, these are all hands-on jobs, because you have to understand, when you're on the street like that, you're going to be depressed, and we have to help build people's self-esteem. And when I was with my family and I did things with my hands and created, I get a great sense of pride out of that. And that helps. And that's boiled over into other aspects of my life. So I'd like to be able to promote that as well. And then that's how you give people hope and a future and an opportunity. And I understand there's going to be folks that will just absolutely be ineligible for work. I know we'll have those situations, and we will cross that bridge when we get to it. But the reality is the vast majority of people are not in that situation. So like I said, this isn't a foolproof plan, but it's something that we will be using, that I would like to use to implement, to work towards a better future for everybody, because we have to be compassionate to these folks. They are still human beings, and they deserve to have those opportunities.
Great. Okay, so a couple more things. California is going to is in a sanctuary state. So in abortion, hundreds of thousands of women seeking abortions could soon flood to California. Gavin Newsom feels that the state should maximize access for both in-state and out-of-state patients by helping to cover the cost of the procedure, as well as transportation, lodging, childcare, food, and lost wages. Those were recommended by Governor Gavin Newsom and the California Future of Abortion Council.
Yeah, so I disagree with the fact that the state should be paying for other people's mistakes or unwanted pregnancies. I've done a pretty good job in my life of not getting anybody pregnant. I don't realize, I mean, some people, I guess it might be a little hard for them to not to not do. But no, I don't believe the state should be responsible for paying for it. Now, I'm not against abortions. I think there's certainly a cutoff limit when it gets to that. Like, I understand, accidents happen, and a woman might, realize, oh crap, I missed my period, and then finds out she's pregnant, doesn't want to have that child. That's fine. That's cool. I'm okay with that. But you start getting later on into a pregnancy, and you get to, like, say, halfway through your second trimester, or even into your third, and you want to have an abortion. I think that's a little bit late. I think you've had time to come to decide if you wanted to actually have that child. I think people just need to take a little bit more responsibility, whether it's practicing safe sex, or, deciding to, actually being ready to have a child and bring a child into this world, because it's, in my opinion, I haven't had children yet, and I do intend to have them. But when I do, I know that my life is essentially over, and my life will now be about my child. So I just wish more people had that understanding. And I think parental guidance and helping prevent sort of these kind of incidents is also important. But no, the state should not fund these things. And I don't believe in the whole concept of a sanctuary city. The law, or state or county or whatever, the law is the law. I'm not here to ban abortions. I'm not here to make them completely accessible to everybody. I'm here to carry out the will of the people. If people want to see changes to these laws, go get a bunch of petition signatures, bring it to a vote. And my job is to carry out what you want.
Okay. How would you suggest California address the drug epidemic supercharged by the synthetic opioid fentanyl, which killed 10,000 residents April 2021 by then.
Yeah,
Gavin Newsom's proposal is to funnel 50 million into educating young people about the risks of opioids and fentanyl by preventing and producing a harm reduction messaging. What would your approach?
Well, I don't feel like anybody out there would say that, oh, I think these are good drugs. I mean, people might enjoy them. I've lost several friends actually to opioid and fentanyl, and it's very devastating. So I think
let me just interject here, just so you know, the district attorneys in Riverside, Orange, and San Bernardino counties want to take a different approach, which is charging drug dealers with murder and fentanyl related deaths.
I'm with that. I mean, that drug is so dangerous. I mean, just the smallest amount can kill people. And it's an illegal narcotic on the streets. So and it's very dangerous. And anybody pushing that, yeah, I don't see why not. We need to be tough on drugs. We need to be tough on the folks that are manufacturing these drugs inside our country. We need to be tough on the folks that are bringing it into our country. It's terrible. In fact, I was shooting one of my my commercials at this homeless encampment site in Universal City. And as I was there, a drug dealer rolled up and started selling drugs to the folks in there. And I mean, that's the lowest form of scum, in my opinion, preying on the absolutely most weak individuals. Drugs are, they're terrible. Those hard drugs are terrible. So we need to prevent that. I would be very tough on that. We need to have tighter border security to prevent them coming in. And we need to go after the cartels and the gangs that are producing them and pushing them here in California. We just need to take a more aggressive stance and allow the police to pursue these criminals. And when we get them, make them pay.
What you mentioned about the border and the cartel. So do you want to talk about, seems like a good segue right into immigration.
Sure. So like I mentioned, talking with other folks that are running for governors in different states. Part of what I've also, like, for example, like Nevada, again, not a border state, but however affected by illegal immigration. And I asked these folks, will you help, if the federal government is not willing to help fund the border wall, will you and your state help me pay for it here in California? And again, they say yes. We have to secure our border. What is a nation without borders? What is a nation without free and fair elections? Is nothing. These are significant dividing lines that we have to, because if you just let anybody into this country, then what's the point of being a U.S. citizen? It devalues that tremendously. You need to be a U.S. citizen to be here, or you need to have the proper documentation to be here. So I want to secure our borders. Absolutely. MS-13 and the Mexican cartel, they have absolutely infiltrated California and the United States. And we can't necessarily go into Mexico and fight them, but we can do everything we can to keep them out of our cities and our neighborhoods. So I would like to give our Border Patrol agents all the help we can give them. I'd like to make sure our ICE agents are able to carry out their duties. I'd like to make sure our police are able to go after these criminals. We have to give them the tools, and we have to take the handcuffs off the law enforcement, so to speak. Right. Allow them to enforce the law.
Okay, so I grew up in Los Angeles. So, and while I was went to school there, it was like #1 in the country. It was top. The education system in California was known to be one of the best in the country, if not the best. It is far from that now. It is near the bottom.
49th overall.
Right, overall. So what would you do as governor to improve our education system?
Well, we have to stop lowering the standards for a start. We need to bring back things like shop class, home ec, accounting, economics, real American history, not this revisionist 1619 garbage. And we have to get rid of, we have to completely ban CRT because it is absolutely divisive. That's not how you bring people together teaching. And that's certainly not healthy to teach a victim class and an oppressor class. That is absolutely has no place in our society because it's simply not true. So we have to get rid of that completely. This pornographic sex education that's being taught in schools. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you should see some of the disgusting literature that's out there. They're teaching children in grade school how to perform oral sex and homosexual sex. And why the hell do kids need to be exposed to this stuff? I mean, listen, whether they figure it out on their own or that's fine, but it's not something that the schools need to be involved in teaching. We have to give kids real tools to be able to be prepared for the future. If they understand accounting and how to manage a bank account and a check and balance a checkbook before they leave high school, you're going to see a lot less kids going into debt. If they know how to if they learn shop class, I mean, basic things, building a birdhouse, they will be able to save money by not having to pay for somebody to do, simple handy jobs around the house. Home ec, a lot of kids, my generation and younger, they do not know how to cook. They do not know how to do, certain things to take care of the home. Those are important tools that people need to know how to do. But like I said, raising the standards, we have dropped the standards so far, it is pathetic. I've heard that Gavin Newsom is trying to do away with failing grades like D's and F's. How does that make things better for our kids? It doesn't. And also we have to make sure that parents have the final say with what happens to their children. Parental rights are paramount because the children are not the state's property. They're not the state's responsibility. Those are those parents' responsibility. The school's job is to teach them and give them the tools to be prepared for life in the real world. So we have to do that. And we also have to bring back a love for America. I want kids to recite the Pledge of Allegiance every day at the start of in their homeroom class at the start of every day. I think that's a very important thing because there's no reason to hate this country. We're the greatest country that's ever existed. And a lot of folks have, laid down their lives that we have the freedoms that we have today. So I think it's important that, kids are instilled with that understanding and knowledge. We can't be having Antifa members or pedophiles teaching our children. I'm okay with the homosexual lifestyle, but I'm not okay with it being taught in schools as an acceptable way to live and that it's cool or it's the trendy thing. You're confusing these children. Let them figure this stuff out on their own. Like when I was growing up and I was in school, yeah, we had an idea of who the gay kid was, but we didn't care. It was just still our friend, but we were like, all right, he's probably gay, but whatever. It wasn't like, hey, you should try it. You don't know. Who knows? The doctor assigns your gender. What kind of garbage is that? There's two genders. So, I mean, I can go on and on. It's something that I do passionately care about, but also the what's it called? The teachers unions, we can't be held hostage by them. So, I'm prepared to create an alternative school system. Also, the money needs to follow the student, whether they go to public school, private school, or a charter school. You're seeing charter schools pop up because the public school system is failing or has failed. So this is, again, a symptom of a failing or failed education system. So the money should absolutely follow the student no matter where they go. And like I said, the teachers unions, if they're not willing, and they need to be held accountable with things like standardized testing that's graded by a third party grader, not the schools. And that way you can get a much more accurate read on who's an effective teacher as opposed to who is not. And if you can't make the cut as the teacher teaching your students rather, then you have no place teaching. So I remember being, when I was in grade school, we got the ERBs and then you got the SATs when you're in high school. And they're getting rid of all this stuff now. I think we need to bring it back at a higher quality and a higher standard. And like I said, third party grading for that. And it should be performance based. I think a lot of things in life need to become performance based for returns. You want to get that raise, that school district wants to get these benefits. Okay, do a better job teaching, and then you'll be entitled to those. Earn your keep, essentially. And if they're not, and if we can't get rid of if the unions don't want to play ball, I'm prepared to create an alternative school system, because in business, when we wanted to fire somebody without getting sued into oblivion, you just created another job that made that job title that the person was working for obsolete. And that's how you're able to get rid of them. So there are plenty of outside the box options that I don't think we've actually looked at.
Well, I'm just, before we go on to the part where I was going to ask you about some of the controversial state assembly bills, I'm just going to invite anyone else who has other questions for you to go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will relay them to you in just a minute.
Forgive me, I've got some in-depth answers.
I know, no, it's great. You really have are demonstrating you have thought about some of these and these issues quite extensively, and so that's great. We're getting a really good idea of where you stand on these things. So
thank you.
Wonderful. That's
I care. That's the whole thing. Like, this isn't like, oh, I want to be governor because I want to be famous, or I want special privileges, or wouldn't that be some sort of accolade or a little notch on my belt or whatever. I don't care for that. I'm just fed up with everything being broken, people being broken, the system being broken. I've seen the corruption firsthand. I'm tired of it, and I think everybody is tired of it. And if I felt that there was somebody better out there, I would support that person. But unfortunately, I don't see it. And I've said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to stand up and do it. And fine, come after me. Say all the horrible things you want. I don't care. At least I got the stones to do it.
So today in the Senate, they're voting on SB 866, which is the minors vaccine consent, which basically says, authorizes a vaccine provider such as a clinic, licensed health facility, or administrator to a vaccine to a 12-year-old child and up without parental knowledge or consent. There is no ability for the vaccine provider, leaving parents completely responsible for any treatment of any injuries.
Yeah, that would be an absolute hell no. Parents decide what happens to their children, what goes into their children, because that is their child. I would also ask the question, cui bono, which is Latin for who benefits? Well, obviously the pharmaceutical companies, because they're making more money by doing this. So I would absolutely be adamantly against this. When the child grows up and becomes 18, they can do whatever they want. But until then, it is up to the parent what happens.
And I think that's being voted on today. Another one is SB 1100, which is open meetings, orderly conduct, which is kind of near and dear to my heart because I have a gentleman, a dear friend. He's Hispanic. He had 4 kids in our local school system. He went to our local Board of Supervisors meeting to object to what they were saying, what they were teaching, and he was very strong and loud, but not abusive in any way. But he said, "What you're teaching my children is BS." He didn't say the whole word. He just said the initials, BS. And they said, "If you say that again, I'm going to have the police remove you." And he said, "What are you talking about, BS?" And she said, "That's it. You're out of here." So there are rules already in place to enforce, peaceful citizens coming in and objecting to whatever's going on in their community. But this new bill gives whoever's running the meeting to say, okay, well, I feel offended, or I'm upset, or you're upsetting me, or I don't like your tone, or whatever, and having them removed immediately. So it's above and beyond what's already in place.
Well, I do believe we need to have civil discourse. However, in that situation, I don't believe that gentleman was out of line. And I think that these folks that are in government, they need to remember that they are public servants. You serve the public. That is your job. You need to answer to them because that is who you serve. So I think we need to have way more transparency in our government. And I think anybody has the right to come in and say things. And I don't see anything wrong with BS. I see nothing wrong with saying that. So, and I'm someone who really likes to swear because it's just language. I know some people get offended by it, but I think that's in that situation that you were specifically mentioning. I think that was just an absolute abuse of that person's power to remove and silence a dissenting voice that was going against his or her, I guess, intentions or wants. So okay. Yeah, I'm against any more stringent, anything limiting people's ability to speak out against things in government.
Okay, perfect. That's a great transition to SB 1390, which is social media platforms, amplification of harmful content, which is existing. Oh, let's see, let me just see. This bill prohibits social media platform from as defined, from amplifying harmful content in a manner that results in a user viewing harmful content from another user from whom the user did not choose to share a connection. The bill defines amplify is to mean to take action either through manual automatic means that has the effect of increasing the viewership of certain materials. It provides that harmful content includes libel and slander, which is okay, as specified, but also threats of imminent violence against government entities, disinformation or misinformation, including but not limited to false or misleading information regarding medicine, vaccines, false or misleading information regarding to elections, and conspiracy theories. And basically, it sounds like they want it needs to if I got something and I wanted to share it with somebody else, the social media platform should shut it down.
So
Something they deem as misinformation or controversial or a conspiracy theory or whatever, even if I'm not saying it and I just want to pass it on to somebody else going, look at this crazy theory, they can shut you down.
well, I would definitely argue that is a very limiting thing on when it comes to the First Amendment. You know, when these social media companies sign on to be these platforms for so many people, they essentially become a utility. So I would argue that they have any right to silence anybody's voice. I mean, obviously there's limitations, like, you know, I guess maybe posting pornographic material, but I think everybody has the right to their own opinion and their own view, whether you like it or not. Or agree with it or not, people have the right to voice their opinion and say things, especially if you're going to be open to the public like that. I understand that they're private corporations to an extent. But like I said, when you're that large and that involved and that much of an influence on society as a whole, you've become a utility. So I'm absolutely against that. And then who's to determine what is misinformation? You know, what this whole what is it? The ministry of, it's like the ministry, what do they call it now? The Ministry of Misinformation or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. If you ever read 1984, it sounds like the Ministry of Truth to me. And that's very Orwellian. And I think we need to step very, very far away from that in that direction, as it's leading to totalitarian control. So no, I'm very much against them having those sort of abilities over the people.
Okay, great. Going on, we have a question from somebody in our viewers. So would like to know if you've ever held any elected office before.
No, I have not. I think that's a good thing. I don't think we need any more career politicians. Look at the wonderful job they've gotten us into.
Okay.
We need outsiders with new ideas, in my opinion.
Okay. So here's another bill that's up, SB, I guess it's Senate Bill 1464, law enforcement public health orders. So just so you know, our Riverside County Sheriff has said, this is when they were the state was issuing all these mandates about vaccine passes to go into restaurants and businesses and what do you call masks and all these different things. Our Riverside County Sheriff here said he's not interested in having his law enforcement officers enforce those.
Yeah, I was very happy to hear that.
So, but this state bill would defund any sheriff or any law enforcement officer agency that would not follow those orders.
Defund them for not following those orders, huh?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant. No, that's stupid. First off, the not the Fauci science, the actual science is that if there is not a perfect seal with those masks, well, they're already not effective because air, much like water, will take the path of least resistance. Also, not all of these masks are essentially up to the standards that they need to be. And especially with those stupid surgical masks, those have holes in them that are up to three times, if not more, larger than the actual virus itself. So, I mean, as they can't, I guess, help to an extent. They're not foolproof. And I think it's an absolute infringement on people's rights and freedoms to force people to wear anything like that. Also, these vaccine passports are totally unconstitutional, and they also violate HIPAA laws. So we cannot have that as well. I'm firmly against that. If it's my body, my choice, right? So I don't think it's a requirement for education or employment. And yeah, it's definitely a waste of time for law enforcement to go around enforcing those things. It's pretty disgusting. I don't know if you guys have seen the footage from other countries where you have police going after folks, like say in Australia, slamming, children and grandmothers to the ground for being out or not wearing their mask. I mean, that's, are you kidding me? Like, where have you seen things like that? That's something that you would see in a totalitarian society. We cannot have that. And besides, it was so arbitrary. Think about it. Oh, you have to wear the mask to walk to your table in a restaurant, but when you sit down at the table in the restaurant, you don't need to wear the mask. Like the virus only exists at this level. I mean, there's so many of these rules that they were imposing on us that were completely arbitrary with no scientific backing, completely flawed. And you're seeing folks who have been injected with these experimental drugs, because it's exactly what they are. They are not vaccines. They're experimental mRNA injections that are suffering from COVID, supposedly in far more numbers than folks who are not. So no, I'm absolutely against that, and defunding the police for not following those ridiculous orders. In fact, I applaud any law enforcement agency that stands up against those, because they are unconstitutional.
Okay, so on to another topic, universal basic income. How do you feel about that?
Again, another way of devaluing the US dollar. It's completely stupid. There's no, where are you going to get that money? I was posed this question once and somebody said, what about $1,000? Okay. $1,000 times 40 million people. That's, I think, $400 billion, if I'm not mistaken. Where are you going to get that money? It doesn't just fall from the sky, and it has a negative impact on the valuation of the currency overall. There's no need for it. Absolutely not.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot. I'm so thankful for that. I appreciate that. Do you have about 10 more minutes, 5 or 10 more minutes? If I don't see any other questions pop up, would you like to take a couple of minutes to make a few a statement, anything else that you feel like you'd like to talk about? That would be on like your top 1 or 2 things that you do the minute you got into that office.
Well, I definitely would like to limit the abuse of the Emergency Powers Act that the governor has. I think that's absolutely been abused, and we need to limit that abuse. I think it's only for very serious catastrophic incidences, and I think that it's still being in place for the COVID scamdemic is completely out of order and unnecessary. So I would definitely work on limiting that. Corruption is probably the single biggest thing holding back California and our government as a whole. And I'd like to expose that corruption and shine a light on it. I want to make everything in government completely transparent and accessible to everybody. I want the California citizens to know who is and who is not supporting the positive initiatives that need to take place in California, and be informed. Also, these propositions that we vote on, when they use triple negatives or something like that, like yes, I would not like that, or no, I would certainly like that. We need to make these things far more clear and one issue only, not, oh, we're gonna increase taxes to help pay for schools, but 90% of that money is going to go to a foreign country or something along those lines. I mean, I'm not saying that necessarily happens, but you know what I'm getting at. So if we're going to have propositions for issues, one topic, it must be very, very clear, and no hidden agendas with those as well. I mean, the fact that you have people, and I'd like to find a way to prevent insider trading. I mean, Nancy Pelosi has been in office for 33 plus years, and her net worth is now worth $135 million, and she was certainly nowhere near that when she started. I'd like to make all finances for folks in government completely transparent, even their stock trading as well. In fact, I don't think they should be allowed to do that. If they're going to have access to, specific information that would, I guess, be deemed insider trading, I don't think they should be allowed to trade stocks or anything like that. Let's see what else. I mean, yeah, my family had Zacky Farms. I started at the bottom of I did not just, here you go, you're vice president now. No, I started at the bottom. I worked my butt off to become vice president. I did every single job in the company working my way up. And I spent a lot of time. I spent 7 years as an active board member lobbying for the California Poultry Federation in DC and Sacramento. And that's what got me a lot of exposure to the corruption. And I've seen firsthand how stupid, incompetent, and not caring these people are. And that's one of the big motivators for me to make a change. Let's see. Yeah, voter integrity. I think we need to have free and fair and transparent elections here in California and the United States as a whole. The fact that anybody is worried or questioning the integrity or validity of an election is a serious red flag and needs to be addressed. Whether it changes or doesn't change the outcome of the 2020 election or not, if people are not confident in the voting system, it's an issue that needs to be addressed. So I want to make sure that the voter rolls are archived and purged after every election. If you want to vote, you will take it upon you as your civic duty to register to vote for every election. When you do so, you will receive a physical voter ID card that will not only have your picture on it and your name, but it will also have your specific polling location where you're supposed to actually go vote in person. We will not have this mail-in ballot stuff anymore. We will get rid of these electronic voting machines until we can deem that they're actually foolproof and safe. And unfortunately, they are not. So we will go to secure paper ballots, hand counting. And I'd like to have the tabulation process monitored essentially in a Vegas casino style security system. I mean, if they can tell you what card the dealer screwed up on, for like a hand of blackjack, or if they overpaid you or underpaid you, we need to have that in place to make sure that the ballots are being tabulated appropriately. We cannot have Antifa members or serious activist members tabulating votes in a biased manner. We need to have fair representation when it comes to tabulating votes. I'd like to make election day a holiday. No work, banks are closed, all that stuff. You have no excuse to not vote. So I'd like to do that. Like I said, all paper ballots with a lot of safety security measures involved in that. I've been working and speaking with Jim Marchant, who's part of the Election Integrity Project. He's also running for Secretary of State in Nevada. And he, along with the Election Integrity Project, have developed a very, very secure paper ballot. There will be no ballot harvesting. And if you do need an absentee ballot, you better have damn good proof that you're unable to make it to the polls. And when you do go to the polls to vote in person, you'll bring that physical voter ID card, but you'll also have to present something that proves citizenship, another photo ID citizenship thing, not a driver's license, something that proves that you're a U.S. citizen and are supposed to vote, because only U.S. citizens should be voting in these elections. I wonder if I missed anything with that. I think I did a good job of covering that. Yeah, I have thought this out. This is something I'm passionate about because I care. I'm not here to tell you this is wrong, we must fix this. This is bad, we must change this. I'm bringing solutions with me on how to do this. People don't want to have these empty promises and be told a bunch of garbage. I'm not here to play identity politics. We need somebody in office who has a plan, something that we can go down a path to success with. And we have to do it in a unifying manner. That's the only way we're going to succeed. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican or a Green Party or an independent or whatever. We are all going through these problems together. And like I said earlier, we must come together to overcome together, to succeed together as one state and be part of Team California.
I love that idea of Team California. So tell me again, before you only have about 3 or 4 more minutes, how do you plan on bringing such a diverse state together?
Like I said in the beginning, focusing on the key foundational issues that affect everybody. Um, like I said, the drought, the homeless crisis, the education system, the corruption, the wildfires, the crime rate, that is this crime wave that's out of control. Oh, by the way, this whole license to steal thing, we're getting rid of that $950 minimum allowance of shoplifting. No, 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 no. $400 was grand theft, and that's not a misdemeanor anymore. Also, police need to be able to enforce the law and not be told that they can't enforce misdemeanors. That's when you do that, you get a license to steal. You get crime rates to the roof. You embolden criminals to do more heinous crimes and especially with this revolving door situation. And I think we do need to have prison reform, absolutely. And I think we need to have alternative forms of punishment as well. Back in the day, they used to have public humiliation punishments. Why not bring that kind of stuff back?
Wow.
It worked. It worked. It's a deterrent.
I appreciate, Leo, I appreciate your transparency, your ideas. I think that you've expressed them very, very well, and I really appreciate that. Was there anything else? I didn't mean to cut you off. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Again, I'm not here to be a career politician. This is not what I ever want to do. I do not want to be somebody that's a politician for years and decades. No. I have my plan, and my goal is to become your next governor, set the foundation, set the course, start making real tangible progress that everybody can feel and see. And I want to make that happen for Californians. I can't promise that I'll fix it all in one go, but I will definitely set us on that course. And if the people of California like my work and would like me to do that job again, then it's up to them to vote me back in again. But after that, no, I've got my own life, my own plans. I need to go, I want to make my money. I want to be successful. I want to be, I think everybody in government should operate under the terms that our founding fathers founded this country on, which is you do your public duty, and then you go back to your life. That's what they used to do. They used to go back to their farm or to their distillery or whatever. That's fine. That's what I want to do. I want to go back to my life, because this is, you do your service, you get out.
So how's the polling going for you?
I don't look at I don't look at polling. I honestly, they've been very inaccurate in recent history. So like, why am I going to pay for it? And polls only work for the people that they poll. And you can have biased polling, so it doesn't matter to me. What I check my own temperature. So whenever I go and I have speaking engagements, I get such positive feedback. And people can see that I'm actually genuine in what I'm saying, and I hope that's coming across to all of you out there, because I do care. I'm vested in this. I get phone calls every day about my candidate statement from so many different folks, and they call me. I'm running as a Republican, and I get folks that are liberal Democrats, and they say, "Hey, I like what I've read. Can you answer a few more questions for me?" And I talk with them, and I answer their questions honestly, and at the end of the conversation, they're like, "I've made up my mind. I'm voting for you." So I think that's a really good way to check the temperature, aside from polling. I mean, it's hard to get exposure, and that's the biggest thing I need right now. But there's so many obstacles when it comes to that. But it doesn't faze me. I'm doing this for all the right reasons, and I'm doing this for everybody. So hopefully that shines through, and I think I do have a really good chance. I've got tremendous name recognition thanks to the hard work that my great grandfather and my grandparents put in to creating the company that we had, and why not take advantage of that? But it's again, it's not to line my own pockets. I don't need this job. I don't need this money. 180,000 or 200, whatever the hell it is. That's not going to change my life, and I'm not looking to take money under the table. That's exactly what I'm trying to prevent.
Okay, thank you so much. Our time is up. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. Zach, if you have